You know, there's a funny thing about cats. Have you ever tried to catch a cat that doesn't want to be caught? You see one walking across the yard, tail high, looking like it owns the place. You think, I want to pet that cat. So, you stand up, you walk toward it. Maybe you even make a little noise. Try to call it over. And what does the cat do? It freezes. It stares at you with those narrowed eyes. And the moment you take a step faster, trying to close the gap, it bolts. Gone. Under the fence, up a tree. The harder you chase, the faster it runs. It's instinct. Anything that chases you is a predator. But now, imagine you don't chase. Imagine you just sit there. Maybe you put a little saucer of milk down next to your chair. You ignore the cat. Give it 10 minutes. That cat will be rubbing against your shin, purring like a diesel engine. Money works exactly the same way. Most people spend their entire lives running after money with a net. They are sweaty, they are exhausted, and they are constantly anxious because the moment they stop running, the money stops coming. They are chasing a prey that is faster than they are. What I want to talk to you about today is how to put down the net. I want to talk about how to become the saucer of milk. I want to talk about how to stop chasing wealth and start attracting it. Now, this isn't some magic trick. It's not about wishing for it. It's about understanding the physics of value. And to understand that, we have to look at the trap most folks fall into. What my friend would call man with a hammer syndrome, except here, the hammer is hard work and the nail is a paycheck. We are trained from the time we are knee-high to a grasshopper that money is something you get in exchange for your time. You trade an hour of your life for $20 or $50 or even $1,000. It seems fair enough on the surface, but it's a trap. It's a linear game in an exponential world. The problem with selling your time is that you have a ceiling. There are only 24 hours in a day, and you need to sleep for some of them. If your wealth is tied to your time, you are capped. You are structurally limited. And worse, if you get sick, or you want to take a vacation, or you just get tired, the money spigot turns off. That's the rat race. It's not just about working a job you hate. It's about the mechanics of your income being dependent on your physical presence. You are the engine. If the engine stops, the car stops. I read a lot of history. It's the only place where the answers haven't changed. And you see this pattern repeat for centuries. The people who really built sustainable, enduring wealth didn't do it by being the hardest worker in the field. They owned the field, or they invented a better plow. They detached their input from their output. So, if we aren't chasing money by selling time, what are we doing? We are building a magnet. There's a brilliant thinker named Naval Ravikant, a sharp guy, very philosophical, who talks about wealth not as something you seize, but as a byproduct. He says you want to escape competition through authenticity. Now, that sounds a bit fancy, but let's break it down to brass tacks. It starts with what I call your circle of competence. But let's look at it through the lens of what they call specific knowledge. Specific knowledge is the stuff that feels like play to you but looks like work to everyone else. It's that weird combination of skills and interests that makes you, well, you. See, in a standard job market, you are a commodity. If you are just an accountant, you are competing with millions of other accountants. You can be replaced. The market price for an accountant is set. You can't negotiate much because there's another guy right behind you willing to do it for 5% less. But what if you aren't just an accountant? Let me give you an example. Look at Scott Adams. You know him? The guy who created the Dilbert comic strip. Now, if you look at Scott's skills individually, he wasn't the best at any of them. Was he the best artist in the world? No. His drawings were actually pretty basic. Was he the funniest guy in the world? No. There are stand-up comedians far funnier. Was he the most experienced businessman? Not by a long shot. But Scott did something brilliant. He engaged in what we call skill stacking. He took his mediocre drawing skills, combined them with his mediocre sense of humor, and mixed them with his deep understanding of corporate office culture. Individually, those skills were average. But combined, he was the only guy in the world who could draw funny comics about the absurdity of office life. He had a monopoly of one. He wasn't competing with Rembrandt, and he wasn't competing with Jerry Seinfeld. He was in a category all his own. That is specific knowledge. That is the magnet. When you become the best in the world at being you, you don't have to chase opportunities. Opportunities find you because you are the only solution to a specific problem. It's about digging a moat around yourself. In business, I look for companies with wide economic moats, brand power, patents, switching costs, things that protect them from competitors. You need to build a personal moat, and the best moat is your own unique intersection of skills. When you do that, you stop competing. As Naval says, competition is for losers. If you're competing, you're copying. If you're creating, you're carving out a space where the money has no choice but to flow to you. But having the skill isn't enough. You can be the best violinist in the world, but if you're playing in your basement with the lights off, nobody is going to buy a ticket. You need leverage. Now, hold on. When I say leverage, I don't mean borrowing money to buy stocks. I'm talking about a different kind of leverage. Back in the day, I'm talking the Rockefeller era. If you wanted leverage, you needed two things, labor or capital. You either had to hire 1,000 guys to work in your steel mill that's labor leverage, or you had to borrow $1 million to buy the machinery that's capital leverage. Both of those are hard to get. You need permission. You need a bank to say yes, or people to agree to work for you. But today, the world has changed. We have a new kind of leverage. It's what I call permissionless leverage. This comes in two forms, code and media. Think about the software engineer writing a program. He works hard for a month, maybe sleeping under his desk, drinking too much coffee. He writes the code once. But once that code is shipped, it can run on 1 million computers at the same time. It works while he sleeps. It works while he's eating a ham sandwich. It works while he's on his honeymoon. The marginal cost of adding another user is basically zero. That code is an army of robots working for him, and he didn't have to ask anyone's permission to build it. Or look at media. This is where most people miss the boat. If you write a book, or record a podcast, or make a YouTube video, you are creating a digital asset. You record it once. It takes effort. It takes specific knowledge. But once it's out there, it circulates. I'm sitting here talking to you, and maybe 10 years from now, someone is reading a transcript of this or listening to a recording. I'm not doing the work then. I did the work now. But the value is being delivered then. That is decoupling your time from your money. When you combine specific knowledge, doing what you are uniquely good at, with leverage, using code or media to multiply your efforts, you create a gravity well. You become a massive planet in the solar system of the economy, and resources start to orbit you. I want to touch on the psychology of this for a moment, because this is where people trip up. This requires patience, and human beings are terrible at patience. We are wired to chase the gazelle because we are hungry now. Morgan Housel, a fantastic writer on the psychology of money, talks about how getting rich and staying rich are two different skills. But there's a third skill, deserving to be rich. If you chase money without providing value, you are essentially trying to trick the market. You're trying to get something for nothing. That's speculation. That's gambling. And the house always wins eventually. But if you focus on building your skills, on creating that specific knowledge, you are building equity in yourself. It's like planting a garden. Let's go back to that porch. Instead of running around the yard with a butterfly net, looking foolish and scaring off every beautiful creature in sight, imagine you become a gardener. You spend your time tilling the soil. That's you learning the basics. You plant the seeds. That's you trying new things, experimenting. You water the plants, you pull the weeds. That's the discipline, the daily grind of getting better at your craft. For a long time, it looks like nothing is happening. It's just dirt. Your neighbors are running around catching the occasional stray butterfly, and they look at you and laugh. Why are you playing in the dirt? They say. I just made $50 chasing that one. But you keep gardening. You build the ecosystem. And then one day the flowers bloom. And because you have the best flowers, the most unique arrangement, the most vibrant colors, the butterflies come. They don't just come one by one. They come in swarms. And they stay. Because you haven't just captured them. You've created an environment where they want to be. That is the difference between active income and wealth. Active income is the net. Wealth is the garden. When you build a reputation for quality, for judgment, for integrity, that is the ultimate garden. Naval talks about selling your judgment. Eventually, people won't pay you for your hands. They will pay you for your mind. They will pay you because you are the one person who knows exactly where to tap the pipe to fix the leak. I remember reading about a guy who fixed a giant ship engine. The owners had tried everything, hired every expert. Nothing worked. This old fellow comes in, walks around the engine for 10 minutes listening. He pulls out a tiny hammer and gives a gentle tap on a specific valve. The engine roars to life. He sends a bill for $10,000. The owners are outraged. You were here for 10 minutes. You just tapped it with a hammer. Send us an itemized bill. So he sends the new bill, tapping with hammer, $2. Knowing where to tap, $9,998. That is letting the money hunt you. That old man didn't chase the money. He spent a lifetime learning where to tap. He built the specific knowledge. So, here is my advice to you. Stop looking at your bank account as a scoreboard of how hard you work today. Stop trying to find the hot stock or the next big thing that will make you rich overnight. That's just chasing the cat. Instead, look inward. What are you naturally good at? What do you obsess over that others find boring? How can you combine those things into a skill stack that makes you unique? And then, how can you use technology, the internet, code, media, to share that value with the world while you sleep? It takes time. It takes a lot of sitting on the porch while the dirt looks like dirt. But the compound interest on skill and reputation is just like the compound interest on money. It's slow at first, almost unnoticeable. But then it hits the hockey stick curve. Build the garden. Cultivate your mind. Be patient. And let the game come to you. Now, that's enough philosophy for one evening. The sun's down. But think about it. Put down the net.